Please welcome on our virtual stage Leon Fleisher students. They bring musical offerings, they speak about their teacher, as we all pay homage to this incredible man and pledge to carry on his legacy of humility, resilience, and dedication. And now I would like to welcome on our virtual stage Yael Weiss. Yael, welcome. This is a great honor to have you. And I will leave the stage to you.
Thank you, Anna. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, it's been exactly 1 week since Mr. Fleisher's passing. And the thing about it is that it still seems impossible. Leon Fleisher is everywhere. Every time I touch the piano, every time I speak with one of his students, every time I think of Beethoven or Schubert or Brahms, he's there. I first met Mr. Fleisher when I was 12 years old in Israel. I played for him in a masterclass in Jerusalem, and that 1 hour spent together with him and with Mozart's D minor piano concerto changed everything. I had the opportunity to play for many master teachers at the time, but even though I barely spoke English and we could only communicate through sound and gestures, I felt that I absolutely had to work with him when I grew up. There was something so powerful and inspiring at that initial meeting that I never forgot. And at the age of 17, I finally had the opportunity to come to the US, to Baltimore, and to study with him. The first year as a very young person in a new country was not easy. And even though Fleischer's focus with us, his students, was always the music, the composers, and the musical message, I think he was also very aware of who we were as individuals. Even though he usually left the individual story aside. So I was quite astonished when, during that first year, when come November, as a newcomer, I didn't even know what Thanksgiving was. I didn't understand why everybody left the Peabody dormitory and why the cafeteria was closed. Somehow, Mr. Fleischer sensed that. And he invited me to Thanksgiving at his house. My very first Thanksgiving ever was with Mr. Fleischer, with his wife, Kathy, and with wonderful stories and just a very deep sense of gratitude. I'm going to play Chopin's so-called cello etude, which is a piece I remember bringing to one of his lessons. And this is one where I have the score here, and as some have mentioned in previous tributes, Mr. Fleischer had these very distinctive pencil marks that he made. I don't know, maybe he just didn't like sharpening his pencils, but here it is, I can show you. I hope you can see. This is Mr. Fleischer's marks. Short note to long note, he loved doing that. Phrase marks. I think we students all have a cherished library of scores with Mr. Fleischer's lessons in them. So here's some Chopin.
Yael, you're really sending goosebumps. This was incredibly beautiful performance. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's incredible. You mentioned the markings. Do you have any memory you'd like to share? Something about the markings? That was amazing score you shared with us.
Yes, I have so many. I wish I can share with you the entire library. um, I'm
That's a
thinking,
wealth.
yes, I'm thinking actually for some reason right now of the last movement, the variation movement of Beethoven's Opus 109. I think that many of us, maybe even many of the listeners at the moment, his former students, we've played this piece for him. And there was something about the timing in the first variation with those thick, like almost like a painting, pencil marks that I love so much. You know, there's something in that gesture. It's not just the timing; it's the entire expression of that moment that is right there in that marking. It's amazing, and I'm very grateful to have so many scores like that. And you know, even though I know many of us play with iPads these days, there's really no way to replace that touch of pencil instruction to paper. Is so wonderful.
This is wonderful. Do you feel like those markings mean something different as you grow as a musician yourself?
Do his markings mean something different to me over
Then,
the
yeah,
years?
when he actually marked your score from from that time.
I I don't always follow his markings. um, I think
That's very genuine.
the markings. I think the markings are a perfect expression of what he wanted in the music, and I don't think they've changed over the years. At least the years that I've worked with him in the '90s, and I imagine since then also, I think he had a very, very exact and specific way in which he heard music that was not subject to the passage of time.
Hmm.
There's a kind of, from him, I always sensed a kind of, as if there was a truth that was always valid and always the same. However, so I don't think that would have changed for him, and I imagine, as I mentioned, as with the example of Opus 109, because that was such a piece that was so close to him, I imagine that many of us have very similar markings in our scores, even though we as individuals probably played very differently. And maybe we as individuals played differently now than we have when we studied it with him. So I think certainly that's the case for me. But for him, I feel that there was a certain kind of truth that stayed throughout the generations.
Interesting that you mentioned that, of course, every one of the artists who was nurtured by Leon Fleischer became an individual, remarkable artist, and
Yes.
that's what marks the great mentor and great teacher, nurturing the individuality of his students, and
Yes,
not
I
so much
think
imposing his own. He was teaching how to think and how to hear music,
right,
not how to execute it.
right. I think it's actually remarkable that, and, and of course, over the last few weeks, many of us have had wonderful, communications, and it's been an incredible week. But I think it is remarkable how different we are from each other as musicians, even though I do believe that we heard the same lessons.
Yes.
um, and yet, it's exactly as you said. I think we have all internalized his teachings in different ways. We all related to his teachings and related to him, I think, in different ways. and each one of those ways created something really, really beautiful.
Yes, definitely beautiful and definitely very special. And I want to thank you very much for your beautiful playing, very, very heartfelt. It really did send goosebumps down my spine. I'm sure people felt that similarly.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for being with us. We will say goodbye to Yael and bye.